Welcome back to another episode of Life with Beth and Court. I'm Beth.
I'm Court.
And today we have Tall Ticker Todd.
Woo!
Hi. Hey, Todd.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so for today's mic check, Court.
I will not be singing.
You won't?
No, because I don't know any songs about Todds or Teslas or Ticker.
Okay.
So we might just have to have a challenge off, that's what I'm going to call it, a challenge off.
Okay.
Where we do what we normally do when we're not recording with our friend Todd's name.
Yes.
Which is we insert as many words as possible with a T in front and see how far we can get with it.
Wait,
Can I
how
go
did
first?
this all start? Was this you, Beth?
Well, I think so, because I called you Tall Ticker Todd. Well, first of all, I called you Ticker Todd.
And then Tall got added.
And then I'd like to clarify that the rest of the town copied me. We established that for truth on a phone call the other day, you and I. And then I was like describing you to someone and I said, yeah, he's really tall, Tall Ticker Todd. And then I was like, ooh, I like it. And then you got a Tesla. So then you became Tall Ticker Todd and a Tesla.
And then it just got out of hand from there. We were laying in bed. I know that sounds weird, but we were laying in bed and we were talking about how you got a Tesla. And I was like, Beth Ann, this is like a children's book. Like I see Todd driving the Tesla to Texas
on a Tuesday.
With a tan.
Oh, you've never said
telling
tan.
Tall tales.
Oh, yeah. So you did say in your text that you tried not to tell any tall tales on this Tuesday.
I did, yeah. And that's in a text, so I could prepare. This is on the spot. It's a little bit more difficult. Courtney,
Yeah.
that was really well done.
Yeah, thank you. I practiced in bed for like 40 minutes that night, and then I started giggling hysterically. And then I declared I was going to write this book. So I should probably do that at some point.
All of our texts with you are basically some form of telling a story in tease,
That's true.
right?
Okay,
That's
so
true.
we're going to do the challenge off.
Oh, I thought we already did it.
No,
I thought I won.
I was secretly practicing. So you get one exchange and I get one exchange. And Todd, you're going to count how many words there are. And whoever gets the most words that make sense and it's coherent is the winner forever.
Okay, do I get to go first?
Yeah.
Okay, Tall Ticker Todd, who drives a Tesla. What?
Can you say drives? It's got to be straight T's.
Ticker Todd, what do you say? You're the judge here.
I feel like you got to have a little filler in there.
You gotta have a
It's
little
not
filler.
sentence.
Okay, sorry.
Drives a
Start over.
Tesla to Texas, then Tulsa, and he tells tall tales only on Tuesdays at 2:00 with tequila.
Okay. All right.
Woo!
What was the official word count on that? Any idea?
Oh, was I counting the words? I'm sorry.
That's okay. I acted
You
like
can
I
just
was.
mark it up as I'm the winner. It's fine.
I would say like 9. It was my bad. I acted like I was counting, but I was really just moving my fingers. So that was actually on me. Okay.
You have to compete with that without using the same words? That's going to be tough.
Oh, that wasn't
Oh, come on. You can't use the same words.
Fine. Let me get into my story brain.
There's no way that's possible because I use Tall, Ticker, Todd,
Well, I
and
have
Tesla.
to use those. I won't go to Texas.
Okay, all right.
All right. Tall Ticker Todd talks about taking a trip to Tennessee
Oh.
to tan and tell tall tales to
He disqualified those.
Texans about tigers and tissues.
I feel like she's just adding words in now.
In the
I
end.
feel like that doesn't count.
The last thing that actually came to my head was titty bars. And I was like, maybe I should say tissues instead.
Todd's
I
favorite.
would never. First of all,
Oh my god.
Clearly I
go to
won.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
I think I win because mine was more sensical.
All right. But
All right.
you didn't.
Anyway, let's kick this bad boy off. The whole reason that we have Tall Ticker Todd and his Tesla here on this show on a
Didn't
Tuesday.
bring my Tesla, but okay.
I didn't bring my Tesla.
We'll do a field trip to the garage after this.
Is because last week we talked about how to cope with COVID. And one of the ways that we talked about coping, I want everything to be an alliteration. Coping with COVID. It's okay. We're going to break free from it.
Yep.
But one of the coping skills was to schedule our days out, and to one of the things that we talked about with anxiety, to get rid of anxiety or to calm it, is meditation. And like I talked about sleep stories and whatnot. And then we were thinking, who would be a great case study for this? And then we thought about how on our watches, it constantly is reminding us that Tall Ticker Todd is sticking to his schedule.
Yes.
So we virtually high-fived you a lot because you've stayed on a meditation routine for quite a while now.
Mm-hmm. Every morning, I get a notification every morning, and most people's notifications annoy the hell out of me because it just reminds me of like what I'm not doing.
My inadequacy.
But I'm always fascinated by Ticker Todds because I'm like, here he is. He's showing up every day, every morning, and he's sticking to it. And so you're exactly right. When we started digging deeper into the 5 coping skills, we were like, Todd would be fantastic for this because he does stick to it and he does make it a priority. And in full disclosure, with Life with Beth and Court, we walk the talk that we talk usually, and scheduling is an area where I really struggle. And I will say I've gotten a lot better at it, but there's just something inside of me that feels like it's following a rule, and I realize I'm the one setting the rule, and it's good for me to be consistent. But for example, I'm on week 4 of being at home and working from home. And today I decided I'm going to move my entire office from my office into our kitchen because I cannot stand being in routine anymore, and I need to switch it up. So
she really did. She literally
it's right over there.
Rearranged our kitchen so that she could have an office by the window.
Yeah. And so I thought this would be a really good opportunity if there are other people out there that are struggling with routine and scheduling and they want to grow in that way. So as much as I get frustrated and I resist it, at the end of the day, I know it's something that's really good for me and I would like to be in that routine. So we thought it would be great to bring him on to talk a little bit about his routines and his schedules and how he evolved in that journey, and some tips for people like me who are struggling with it.
Yeah, so let's kick off by, Todd, why don't you give yourself a bit of an introduction, and if you remember how we met each other, because we can't remember.
Nope, sure can't.
We don't know when we met.
Really? I remember specifically. It was the snowshoe, our first snowshoe at the cabin, because I literally thought that you guys were Mike Brown's daughters.
Really?
I didn't know you two at all. I knew Mike. Mike Brown is a local Traverse City business owner. He's also in the Optimist Club, and he is, you guys will attest to this, one of the nicest, most genuine people you can meet in this world. He's just amazing. And he invited Brittany and I, my partner, to go snowshoeing. And when we got there, you guys were just there. And right. I don't even know if we really had any introductions or anything. We just kind of went through the motions and had some, hot cocoa in the cabin or whatever. And
when you hike together, you stay together.
Yeah. And we got to know each other, and it was great. I realized when you guys were holding hands in the cabin, I think that you weren't sisters.
Right. They're a very tactile family.
Yeah, we've had to explain that to a couple kids before too.
But honestly, I love you guys. I think you guys are awesome. All the stuff that you guys are doing, and it is. I'm really flattered to be here. I don't feel like I am this person that should be pedestalized at all. I have recently established a pretty good routine, and I'm happy to share it. But I am known. I always think it's funny when I hear people talk about how they have morning routines, and I'm just like, whatever. Sometimes I brush my teeth when I wake up. Sometimes I do it after lunch. Like I'm just all over the place.
That's my style as well.
I'm a random person. So yeah, it's kind of a weird thing that this all came together this way. But I am originally from Ohio. I moved to northern Michigan when I was 18 years old into my parents' tiny little cabin. And I never went to college, and I've been here working ever since. I've done just about every job you can do without a degree. And I landed in a sales position in marketing and advertising, and I absolutely love it because I get to meet.
And you're
Small
good
business
at it,
owners.
man.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's weird. I just got out of a virtual happy hour. We had 9 people in our virtual happy hour,
Wow.
which is
So
great.
you got some extroverting in.
Yeah, I mean, in a weird way, I guess. And this is kind of a, I keep thinking about this in a weird philosophical way, how we're all in this together but separate at the same time, which, I'm not the one to, first realize that, but I think it's very interesting that almost every person on this planet is experiencing this in their own way. And we're all forced to be, apart from our close family,
Right.
Completely separate.
Yeah.
I think there's a song called Alone Together, right?
Mm.
Yep. Dan and Shay.
Yeah.
Yep. Country song. But you're definitely right. So I'm an ambivert as well. So is Beth Ann. She goes more toward introvert. I go more toward extrovert. But man, this situation, the things it brings out of you and like the reflections and the emotions, and it's just been a really interesting ride. And it's kind of like every day I'm like, what will I feel today? How am I going to handle this? What will I use to process this? So it really is this bizarre time of coming together, but everyone having to process their own feelings and emotions individually as we kind of navigate this crazy unknown time.
Well, it's especially bizarre because we're at a time in history that we have almost unprecedented lack of control over how we purchase, what we purchase, when we purchase, what we do, where we work, when we work, like all of that, things that typically you'd say like, well, if you don't like your situation, change it. I can't because legally I can't go out of my house. So there's this very bizarre, you have to find the coping and you have to find the routines and how to not go crazy, but within these certain confines. And normally the whole world is at our fingertips. Normally we've got a bunch of different ways that we can cope or, interact with others to help us through a time like this. But like you're saying, we're all forced to be apart. And so it's now helping us assess, how do I keep connection with people? And I think before we may have lost sight of how important our connection was to people when we had the freedom to see them.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So as you said, you were not used to being a routine guy. Routines didn't come naturally to you. You didn't have them your whole life. This seems to be something that's newly developed for you. So tell us a little bit about what that journey's looked like for you.
Absolutely. It's interesting because, from a macro view, I have this weird love-hate relationship with self-help stuff in general. People like Tony Robbins, or I look at them and I love listening to them. I could watch the whole movie, but then afterwards I'm like, this is a little bit cheesy. What am I doing? So I have this weird where I engage with those self-help type entities, and then I kind of pull back. So what happened was I started seeing a lot of value in a morning routine. And I really related with people that talked about how it ripples throughout your day, because I felt that. I felt when something negative happened to me in the morning, or like the whole get out of the wrong side of the bed kind of thing, like that, I could relate to that. So I saw the value in starting a morning routine. But the funny thing is that I tried and failed a lot. And for different reasons. So it was probably 6 months ago that I started trying to dial in a morning routine, and it came from, I think, Tim Ferriss.
4-hour work week.
Yeah. And he's great, and a lot of this stuff is YouTube, looking stuff up and following on him and, his very stringent, like how he does what he does. So yeah, I decided several times to engage in this morning routine, just a very generalized idea of, okay, we have to do this. So that's where it really started, I guess. It didn't start succeeding until recently, but we can get into that a little bit later, I guess.
Sure. And that actually is the next thing we wanted to talk about. So now that you're 6 months in, right? So you failed a little bit and then you kept trying and you kept trying. So you're 6 months in. Does it come naturally to you at this point? Is it more natural, or do you still feel like you have to put in quite a bit of effort and you're still just pushing through?
It's such a great question because there's this ebb and flow. I started with my literal list on a digital checklist in Notes on my MacBook.
Yep.
You can make your notes a checkbook, right? And I had my base list that I'm happy to share with you, and that's changed a lot. But I would copy it, I would paste, and I would turn it into checks, and I would check them off. And then about 3 or 4 weeks into it, I said, I've been doing these 10 things over and over again. I know them in my head. I don't need the list. And then about 3 days later, I was like, I haven't been making the bed, or I haven't been, doing the one thing.
Yeah.
So that came back to now I'm taking the advice of the books and the mentors. I'm writing down a physical list on paper every morning. And I'm checking those boxes every morning.
Like you handwrite?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
So tell us why the experts you were referencing suggest that versus having a digital list.
It's funny. I'm not really sure why, but it's just things that I keep hearing over and over again. Even my dad was an insurance salesman for 35 years, and he would always tell me to write things down. And it's funny nowadays, I literally am a minimalist, and I strive to only carry my MacBook around with me to meetings. I don't like having a notebook, but there's something about writing something down with a pen, the physical nature of it, looking at it. There's something about that that's better than just doing it on a screen. I don't know why, or I don't know how, but it is.
Well, I think that neuroscientists have actually linked it to you can retain things better because you're physically going through the motion. So it's not just an auditory or a visual cue. Your body physically has to scribe out that information. And so it somehow makes a deeper etch into your brain. So
Maybe
I've heard that before
versus
too.
Receptive learning. Yeah. So Todd, when you are going through your checklist in the morning of the things you do you have times associated with them? Like, I'm going to do this for 20 minutes, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes, or do you just say, I have 2 hours and I'm going to get through as many as I can? What does that look like?
It's interesting because it kind of plays itself out. When you start, it's a jumbled mess. And I started lumping things. When I meditate, I light incense. So why would I have light incense and meditate? I just have light incense and meditate as one. That's one box that I check. I have a couple of things that are always in flux, so it's not always perfect. I think that's okay, though. I'm okay with it not, like, if I'm not, I want to be meditating by 6 a.m., but if I'm not, I'm okay with it. It just is what it is. And if I start a little bit later, that's okay. So I've kind of loosely had times in my head, but I forgive myself if I'm not dead on time.
That seems appropriate to be forgiving going into a meditation.
Sure, yeah. It's funny, I'm going to backpedal just a little bit, but a lot of this has to do with Brittany. Because when she wakes up and how she has her routine, I have to work around that. Just a couple weeks ago, it was really funny. I forgot she drinks decaf coffee. Brittany's pregnant right now, which you guys know, but now your audience does too. So yeah. So I make my caffeinated coffee, and then before I meditate, I have to brew her decaf, like 2 cups that she allows herself. So one morning in the middle of my serene meditation, I hear, "Where's my coffee?" Or, it wasn't that bad, but, something along those lines. So I don't know. It's always changing, and that's okay, I guess.
Do your routines typically kind of cross paths in the morning? Or, because I think about our routines in the morning, and I get up some days 2 hours earlier than Court does. And so my morning routine doesn't really intersect with hers. By the time she's up, I'm like good to start working, like clock in and get to work or make breakfast or whatever. So do you and Brittany cross paths? Like, do you have to work around it in that way at all?
You know, when I said I started 6 months ago, it's really only been the last 6 weeks that I've dialed it in and figured it out. And the last 6 months was me trying things and then really just kind of giving up because it wasn't aligning with her and the communication. And so ultimately I decided to get up really early before I know that she's going to be up, so we don't have that conflict, which is hard. I don't think everybody can do that. I actually tried to do after she woke up for a while, and that didn't work very good either. So
what's your natural chronotype? Like, are you a morning person or a night person by nature typically?
So it's interesting because I prefer the mornings. Like if I had a choice, I would be a morning person, but I have to force it. I'm more of a night owl. Naturally, I want to stay up late and I want to sleep in. But one of the first jobs I had when I moved up here was at a golf course, and I had to be there at 5:36 every morning, and I loved it. It was hard to get up, but watching the sunrise through the mist and the fog on a beautiful northern Michigan morning was amazing. You know, I just loved it. I don't know, it's kind of a mixed answer, but it's hard for me to wake up. I have to force it.
Yeah. And I think for me, so I love this concept of figuring out what works and what doesn't. And so I recently just started meditating, and I started with the 3-minute one and I've upgraded to the 5-minute one. But each time it's that what works and what doesn't. So we've realized like I have to have music, like calming music in my ears with no words. Otherwise, if I can hear her moving around, it throws me off. And then I get frustrated. And then I'm like, okay, you ruined my meditation. So when we talk about, I don't think I've even told you that.
No, but like, I'm like, how did I ruin your meditation by cleaning the house? I'm so confused.
So it's really... yeah, it's figuring out what works and what doesn't. And I love that grace and like self-compassion a little bit of like, I don't have to have this perfect. I can just go with it until I find what feels right for me. And I think a lot of people give up when they don't get it right. Like I'm guilty of that as well. Like if it doesn't work right away, I'm like, well, this is dumb and now I'm not going to do it. So it's really great to hear you say, I've been working on this for 6 months and I really just felt like in the past 6 weeks, I've dialed it in.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know if you want to call it ironic or what, but the meditation practice is really good at just simply letting you realize that you aren't in control of what happens. You're in control of how you react, right?
Yes.
That's a big thing, but that's so a part of meditation because you're just sitting there. And anything can happen. The dog could start barking. The Roomba could go off because it's scheduled to go off or whatever. And I could get mad about that, or I could listen to the noises of the Roomba as part of my meditation. Now, it sounds crazy, but that's something that you learn the longer you do it. It's not easy. I'm never going to say that that's easy. It's really easy to get distracted and get angry about those distractions or mad at yourself or mad at whoever's causing them. It's really, so the meditation that I listen to is, the app's called Waking Up, and it's Sam Harris, and he uses the metaphor of traffic often, which is interesting because it's so true. I can be such an impatient driver. Not that I drive crazy, that person that's in front of me that's going 5 miles under the speed limit, I just want to.
You're just like, why? Why are you doing this?
Right. But ultimately, your emotional reaction isn't going to change the situation.
Right.
So letting go of that is probably so far for me one of the most useful parts of meditating.
That's huge. I think I'm still in the get angry phase. Today was day 5, and
Okay.
that's interesting though, because what you just shared is what my mind was naturally trying to do. Like, it was literally going through, okay, you're hearing the sounds, but there's nothing you can do about it. So how can you react to it or just let it happen? So my mind went there organically, and it was still super freaking hard. But by the end of it, I was like, okay, I'm hearing this noise, but I'm choosing not to let it disrupt what I'm doing. So I'm on the right path.
It's so it sounds like, you know, you just listed that as a big benefit or a shift that you're seeing. What are some other, like, what would you say the biggest differences are that you've seen since starting a routine and or regular meditation?
Well, part of my morning routine is a short workout. It's only a 10-minute workout, but being the tall Ticker Todd that I am,
You are.
I've always had knee issues. I used to be a mogul skier when I was young. That's
Okay.
originally why I'd come up north, is because I wanted to go skiing. And just like a lot of people that run or cycle, I think I've got joint issues in my knees. I think I always have. So that 10-minute workout has helped me tons with the strength in my body. I feel like I have more energy throughout the day. That 2:30 lull isn't as bad as it used to be.
Interesting.
But there's different components of that routine have helped me in different ways. The meditation is an interesting way to. I thought a lot about this podcast this morning and the questions and what might come up, and I just kind of played the scenarios out in my head. Does that help? I don't know, but it's just kind of, it's interesting that you don't have time to think about your whole day like that sometimes. So that's, even if it's 10 minutes or even like you said, 5 minutes, you'd be surprised at what you could, plan or anticipate or change your day just by taking a couple minutes to think about it.
Well, and it's interesting when you talk about that part, kind of the mental rehearsal. I can't remember off the top of my head all the specifics, but I remember that they did this study and they basically had 2 basketball teams of equal strengths. And do you know what I'm talking about? You're smiling. Yeah. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, it was a study where they had 2 basketball teams of equal strengths, and one team they allowed to practice physically. They actually got to go through a whole basketball practice, and then the other team only got to mentally rehearse. And I forget the length of time. It was something of substance where they could actually tell the difference. It wasn't like 2 days and then they were back on the courts. But what they found is that they were at the same strengths at the end of the experiment. So mentally rehearsing the plays and talking through them and in visualizing it, your brain is kind of coding that as if you were actually doing it. So to your point, even taking 5 minutes to kind of run through, maybe there's going to be some, one of the questions in the journal that I use right now, it's called High Performance Habits Planner, I think. It's just that. It's by Brendan Burchard, and it's got a certain set of questions in the morning, and in the evening you kind of rate yourself. And one of the questions it asks is, who really needs you to be on your A game today? And another question is, what is I'll send you
It's a really sweet planner.
It's a pretty cool, it's full page too, so you got a lot of room to write. But so who needs you on your A game today? And then also, what's a situation today that may, I forget the wording, but may take you off your game, and how would your best self react to that? And I think what you're talking about is just having that 5 minutes. Maybe there's a conversation coming up or a client meeting or whatever that comes up that day, and you're like, ooh, this one's typically pretty hard, or I'm not looking forward to this conversation. Taking 5 minutes to mentally rehearse it and kind of think about, like, remove the emotion from it. I'm not there yet. How would my best self respond if this person says this, or if they did this, and kind of run through some scenarios. Yeah. So that mental rehearsal, you're right. Like, even 5 minutes of it could be a real game changer.
Yeah. It sounds silly and trite, but it's true. It really, you will see changes and it's not like the first day that you do it. It's the repetition really that helps, I think.
Do you continue your morning routines on the weekends, or do you kind of lax up then?
I lax up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Own it.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm okay with it for now, but I have been thinking about that a lot lately because my weekends go off the rails, and I turn into lazy Ticker Todd.
I'll put that in the book.
It's funny. My boss, who I look up to, he continues his routines on the weekends, and he talks about how it's even better because at the end of that workout or whatever the end of your list is, now your space is open. Instead of having to go to work, now you can mold your day into whatever you want it to be. I haven't gotten there yet, and I think it's because, I like to drink and stuff on Fridays, and waking up on Saturday morning can be a little hard, and I've just kind of given myself the weekends off. But I think ultimately I'm going to strive to make this at least 6 days a week, if not 7.
Well, I'll tell you what, when we schedule our weekends, like I think, we try to schedule as much as we can during the weekdays too, just so that we know, we kind of look over the calendars together and see who's got what going on and what engagements we have together. And, on certain days, like when we're eating dinner, all just small details, because the majority of our day is, working our 9 to 5s. But the weekends, my goodness,
big difference.
This weekend, oh my gosh, we scheduled, did we schedule? It was just Sunday because I took care of the leaves and had some allergies kick me in the face. And so
she took a big old nap on Saturday.
Saturday was not planned for. And we found that I get angry when I'm tired. And it's just, I'm angry that I don't like being tired. I found that out. I just don't like that feeling. And so,
well, it takes time away from you. Like on your weekend is what you don't like.
Right. So the fact that I felt tired and couldn't, conquer the world on Saturday, then Sunday I was like rearing to go. And we took, we set a timer as we talk about, and we wrote down what we're going to accomplish. And I was like, all right, should I go first? And Court saw my paper and she's like, you want to do all of that today? Like I had a full sheet of paper. I was like, I lost Saturday. I got to get it done. And so, but then when we scheduled it, I got most of it done. And so it felt like, I remember halfway through Sunday, Court's like, this day feels so long. Like we've gotten to do so many different things. And it's really just because we put times to it, and even like when we talked about, we just discovered, oh my gosh, TikTok. We didn't even use the word TikTok in Tall Ticker Todd's alliteration. We just discovered TikTok. And so that, as you can imagine,
is a deep, deep rabbit hole.
Can definitely suck some attention from you. But there are times at night where we'll say like, okay, our scheduled together time is now, how do we want to spend it? Do we want to cook dinner and dance in the kitchen? Or do we want to watch Once Upon a Time? Or do we want to TikTok? Mm-hmm. And it's on our schedule. And so we
protect the time together.
Right.
So that fluidness of like, we have the time that's scheduled for us and that's on the schedule, but what we can do within that time varies. And for me, that helps me to be more successful because then I don't feel like this restriction and control. I know that we've protected the time, but I know we have options within the time.
Yeah. So I think, kind of the idea, of letting the routines go on the weekend, I feel like a lot of times in my head before, because I was the same way, I was like, listen, I am obedient and disciplined all week long. All I want to do is like, quote unquote, let loose on the weekend. But I think that is assuming that routines, that they've kind of got this like negative connotation almost, like, let me break free, freedom.
That's how I feel. Yeah.
Freedom.
I think that social media should be treated as a reward, right? Like a piece of candy or a chocolate or something. It does give you the same dopamine type of hit, right? So I've kind of treated it that way. I'm not into TikTok yet.
Todd.
We're gonna send
you're gonna be TikTok Todd soon.
Yeah. Okay. But Instagram, Facebook, My major thing is a news feed. I just have this news feed scroll that's obviously adapted to show me all the things that I like, but I use that as the end goal. So it's kind of like, for some people it's reading a book in the hammock, but I tell you what, reading a book in a hammock is gonna feel so much better if you checked off those things that you really wanted to do on the list. And I'm one of the biggest procrastinators in the world. I'm not somebody that should be preaching about this at all, but I get it. I really do. And at the end of my morning routine, I'm checking out that news feed because that's the reward for getting through it.
Well, and I think something that you've said a couple times is that you shouldn't be the one talking about it. But I think what we love doing is highlighting ordinary people who can do extraordinary things, because that's what all of us, like, people will say to us all the time, like, oh my gosh, what you're doing is amazing. What do you mean what we're doing? Like, we're living out loud and we're sharing the experience along the way, including, sometimes morning routines are hard. And I've been working at it for 6 months and I still don't feel like I have it dialed in, because I don't think that extraordinary people become extraordinary without these little steps in between. And that's why we love highlighting people like you, who you're like, this is not natural for me. And it feels goofy and I'm 6 months in and I keep working at it, because you know what? Perfection isn't sexy. Perfection is actually annoying. And so when you hear from the people who are like, I wake up without an alarm clock at 5 a.m. and then my coffee is done and you're like, okay, go trip down the stairs. Like, that's not real, and it's not what my life looks authentic. Like. And so we want to show people the path where it's attainable, where you can accomplish things one tiny step at a time. And yes, you will fail along the way, no matter what it is. And routines are just one of those pieces of our lives where it's like, and you know what? Here's the other thing. Like you said, you'll get in a role and you're like checking those 10 things off. And then you're like, I don't even need it anymore. I'm a pro at this. And then you let it go and you're like, oh no, not so pro anymore. Like, that's going to happen too, where you've done something for 3 months straight and then, you fall off for a week. Okay, well, get back on the horse. So I love highlighting someone like you, because it's awesome to see someone who routine doesn't come naturally to, be able
persistence.
To have persistence and to be able to conquer that in a sense, and have the grace and self-compassion with yourself to say, like, man, that didn't work this morning, and kind of adjust on the fly.
Yeah, definitely. So Todd, for those that are wanting to get more serious about a routine and may just be starting, just throwing that out there for any random person, what advice would you give to them?
I'm going to sound like one of those Tony Robbins guys right now. Here we go.
Lay it on us.
I've got my pen. I'll take notes.
First and foremost, it's okay to fail. I wouldn't say embrace it, but don't be hard on yourself. It takes a long time to figure out what works and what doesn't, and that's okay. You're going to have hard days. You're going to have days where you just don't want to do it at all, and that's fine. But also set yourself up to win. This is something that really helped me a lot. And it's a lot of little things. It's stacking little things, little ordinary things. So recently I found myself, one of the first things on my list is meditation. It's after I take care of the animals and do the coffee thing and light the incense, I sit down to meditate. But something about meditation is very relaxing. So I do this like stretch and I relax after I meditate. Well, right after I meditate, I'm supposed to work out. And then I find myself doing this. And I'm like, what's the weather? And what's, my emails and, and that was horrible. So I said, okay, I got to stop doing that. So I adjusted the downtime, screen time on my phone to be a half an hour later. So now it's another click. So if I want to do that, I still can, but I have to click that ignore.
That's a great idea.
And it's helped. It's really helped. So in the last 2 weeks, I haven't done that. I haven't gotten complacent and gone to the news feed. I've said, I know it's there, but I'm going to have to lie to myself or whatever. and that little thing, or little things to help yourself get through the morning routine. Programming the coffee machine
Yep.
to have the coffee made for you, laying out your outfit.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds stupid, but it's huge, because you can get lost in a 20-minute or an hour of trying to find the right outfit.
Totally.
Just lay out some clothes the night before. That's the outfit you decided for yourself, and that's it. Technology helps a lot. I told you guys about the app Alarmy. I mean,
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit.
That gives me hives.
yeah, so, and I heard about this from another person that I told you guys about, but it's a simple app. It's called Alarmy, just the word alarm with a Y on the end. And then what it does is you can only shut off your alarm if you do a certain thing. And a couple of those options are like, shake your phone 30 times or do math problems.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's like your worst nightmare.
Yeah, and then you can choose the level. You can do third grade math or like algebra. You can make it really hard.
Wow.
Algebra to wake you up literally sounds like torture.
Exactly, right? That alarm's just going to go on all day. The one that I did was scanning a barcode. And this is the one that I heard, and it's brilliant. The guy that I heard it from said the barcode on his coffee machine. My coffee machine doesn't have a barcode, so I cut out a random barcode and I taped it on the cabinet above the coffee machine. So my alarm has a snooze in that app, but in 30 seconds it's going to start going off again unless I scan that barcode. So I can shut it off so I don't wake Brittany up. But you better believe I'm getting out of bed and I'm walking down to the kitchen and I'm scanning that barcode every single morning. And then I'm already there and the coffee's made. So I might as well have a coffee and I might as well start this thing out.
Brilliant.
Just stacking very simple things like that, it adds up and it makes it easier. And honestly, another huge component that I don't think about very often, but it's communicating with my partner, communicating with Brittany about what I'm going to do, why I'm going to do it. And if I bother you, I'm sorry. But, I'm going to do my best to go through what I want to do for myself without disturbing you. That took a while. It took, some angry mornings, and that's okay. And they're still going to happen, but that's okay too. But I would just tell anybody out there, I wouldn't say start with one thing. I would say start with a list. Figure out what your list is. You probably already do 5 or 6 of them.
Right.
Just put it on a list.
Right.
So you could get that dopamine when you check it off.
Exactly. I have eat something on my list. I eat something every morning. I have brush my teeth on my list. I do that, but it's still on the list. So yeah, no, just start small, and if it doesn't work, it's okay. I did this and I took like a 3-month break. I said, you know what, I'm over it. And I slept until 7:30 and I got up and I rushed to work. And and I did that whole thing over again. And then I got fed up with that.
You rebel, you.
It was easier for a long time to just let her wake up, do her thing, and then be like, okay, now I can get up and do my thing.
I love what you said, to go back just a second, about how you practiced this and then you said, screw it, I'm going to go back to just sleeping until 7:30 and rushing to work and going through it. And then you had that awareness to say, no, okay, it was really hard and it wasn't fun to do, but I saw enough benefit when I was doing it that I'm choosing to go back. Like, this isn't working for me. So I think that's really huge, because it shows, okay, yes, you have the human moment of like, this feels easier, but is it really easier? Like, am I really setting myself up for success?
Well, it reminds me of what you do in childcare with natural consequences.
Yeah.
When the kid's like, no, I don't want to do this. And you're like, well, it's going to hurt when you fall then.
Yeah.
And then they fall and they're like, ow, now I don't want to do that. Okay, well, then we've got option 2, which is what I suggested. And it's this. And so it's kind of like doing that in your big kid world too, is being like, I don't want a routine. It's restricting, and I hate waking up this early. And then on the other side, it's okay. Well, then you can feel rushed and you can feel cranky and you can get your 2:30 slump and all of those things that, like Court said, you just have more of an awareness once you've woken up to no pun intended, woken up to what it could feel like on the other side of, oh, I feel calm and I don't feel rushed. And I feel, you said you feel stronger. I feel, more in control of how I react to things. And so it's just really interesting. And I like that too. Like Court was saying, I love that you can just admit like, yeah, I gave up on him for 3 months and I was like, not for me. And then you circle back around.
Well, it's managing her expectations too, because one of the first ones, Casey Neistat is a big YouTuber, and he had a Navy SEAL on, and it's a great video. I can't remember the Navy SEAL's name, but Casey Neistat's channel, they talk about a morning routine and getting up at 4:45. And I saw that and I was inspired. And I got up at 4:45 for a week, but all I did was lay on my couch and play on my phone. And I honestly thought somehow that would make me a better person. So the funny thing is that like when I say to Brittany, I'm going to start my morning routine again, she's like, oh God, he's just going to get up early and play on his phone all morning.
Yeah.
I had to say no. Like I'm dialing in a routine. I want to do these things. So I have to manage her expectations too.
And for those of you listening right now, we'll link up in our show notes the Alarmy app that Todd talked about, and we'll grab any other resources that he mentioned on this podcast so that we'll link them in the show notes so that you can go check them out or grab them for yourself if they work, because everyone is different.
My list of maybe 10 things, I came from probably a list of 50.
Wow.
Oh, interesting.
So how did you filter that down?
Well, I didn't do all 50 at first. I found a lot of different articles and took a lot of different notes. So I gave myself a lot of options and I kind of weeded out what made sense to me. But there's just going to be a lot of different things out there. I don't have kids yet,
Right.
So that's a huge thing that I can't even imagine once that gets thrown in, how that's going to change everything. So what I do, I'm happy to share, but it's not going to work for everybody. So if it doesn't, don't feel bad. It's okay.
Yeah, totally.
Customize it to yourself. So my last question is, do you and Brittany and or both have an evening routine as well? Or are you really just dialed in on the morning routines right now?
If we do, it's not planned, but I do see value in it. I've read more recently about an evening routine. Actually, Tim Ferriss has got a great video on his evening routine on YouTube. It has to do with a sauna and a cold bath that I don't have the option for, but
Wow.
God, I would love a sauna. That's like life goals for me, is to have a sauna that I can.
And a cold bath. You go up and then you cool down and it.
I mean, I vote
down.
no on the cold bath. I just like the hot sauna.
So I'll tell you what, this is one of my things I wanted to share, was that I hate cold water. I hate cold water. One of my biggest fears in the zombie apocalypse is not having a hot water heater.
Wow.
Yes.
Like, it drives me crazy, but one of the things of my morning routine is ending every shower with 60 seconds of cold water.
No.
And it sounds crazy, but it is amazing. It changes your whole day.
There's science behind it. I know. You're right.
They talk about blood-brain barrier and there's a lot of science behind it, but the feeling that you have when you get out, I don't know. The Russians have known it for a long time.
I feel like we'll have to try that. And just on a different level, you're kind of facing that fear that you have. Like, I thought you were going to say that's why you're doing it, but it sounds like there's other reasons. But you're also like, okay, this makes me really uncomfortable. This is my worst nightmare, but I'm going to introduce myself to it in small doses to slowly become aware and acclimate to it. So
that is kind of part of my personality. I do like to challenge myself. I hate public speaking, so I put myself in situations where I have to. So that's it is kind of like that.
And that's why we love you. You step outside the comfort zone, and those are our people. Like, we step outside that zone a little bit, but we have our people that support us, and we just keep moving and growing. So that's one of the things we love about you.
60 seconds of cold water at the end reminds me of ice baths in college. and they were so painful. Bottom line is there's definitely science behind the cold.
Well, thank you so much, Todd. We loved having you as our first guest on the podcast, and we could not think of a better person to be real, authentic, and true about your journey of developing routine, and we're super happy that you were here.
And as we always say, and like Todd has said, take what's helpful and leave the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much. I'm so honored to be your first interview. That's so great. I love you guys.
We love you too, Todd. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in this week. Hopefully you enjoyed this interview with tall Ticker Todd, who drives a Tesla, that we interviewed on a Tuesday in Traverse City. Ooh, I had a Traverse City. Until next week, as we always say, keep building your best life.
Bye, guys.